Good afternoon. I'm still reporting on the most persuasive video on the connections between the deaths of JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King, Marilyn Monroe, and others has finally been revealed in a 1-hour film which Newsmax ran in the early morning hours this morning. Luckily for me, I was up at that time this morning, although I missed out on the first minute or so when the credits ran. I've been closely following the slow developments on this story as a reporter over the decades, but at least 10 items in this film are entirely new to me and fill in a lot of blanks. I'll make some comments along the way.
Since Watergate, the Church's, Pike, and Nedzi committees were established, looking to investigate CIA abuses and assassination plots of foreign leaders. The investigations highlighted a continuous theme of obstruction. Over the decades, concerted efforts of withholding information has suppressed the truth. To this day, important information concerning the murders of the two most revolutionary minds of the 20th century remains hidden, unexposed to the public. Prompted by the King family's acceptance of some of the claims of conspiracy, United States Attorney General Janet Reno ordered a new investigation on August 26, 1998. On June 9, 2000, the United States Department of Justice released a 150-page report rejecting allegations that there was a conspiracy to assassinate King, including dismissing the findings of the Memphis Civil Court jury. Key information from the case and trial was omitted and ignored from all the reports, the secrecy of which only illustrates their attempts to silence the truth, which to this day remains unrecognized. (1998). After unsuccessfully clearing his name, convicted murderer James Earl Ray is pronounced dead at the age of 70. Was the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King inextricably linked with the inner workings of the Kennedy assassination? Would an in-depth investigation and trial expose the crooked spine of government or unmask the true perpetrators? Was it an attempt to silence the truth? Whether you believe Ray pulled the trigger or not, covered up facts, witness silencing, red herrings, and illegal surveillance surrounding the assassination has blurred the lines between fact and fiction, implicating those in power. The assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. fulfills all the requirements of being a conspiracy. Whether it leads to the heart of the state or not, the veil of secrecy and disguise displayed from those in power is for all to see. Only with heightened transparency of government will those who abuse power be truly exposed.
An arm of the federal government going to the boss of an organized crime family to talk about the assassination of the leader of a country to advance political purposes.
It's just that there was a certain presence about him.
The thing that made Sam Giancana dangerous was the same thing that made every member of the Chicago outfit dangerous, and that is their willingness and ability to kill without question based on an order.
Momo, Sam Giancana, the sharp-dressing guy who takes way too little credit for way too much. Cross him once, wake up dead. Just ask Kennedy.
In '63, I know when it all happened, it didn't seem like, shocked.
The world will never know the true facts.
Chicago always was a one-boss town. That's the world Sam came into. Born right there, May 24th, 1908. Guillermo Giancana, or Momo Salvatore Giancana, on June 15th. Grew up in the Patch, known as the Spaghetti Belt.
We never referred to it as the Patch. We always referred to it as Taylor Street. I grew up in a cocoon. Maybe in this case we could call it a cannoli. I grew up in a protected neighborhood. It was a defended neighborhood. I grew up feeling very safe. It's kind of like everybody knows everybody. People like to be where everybody knows your name, and that's the way it was on Taylor Street.
Sam's old man was a street vendor, sold fruit. Antonino, Sam's mom, Antonia, died when he was 2. So he didn't get a whole lot of mothering, and there was nobody keeping him off the streets.
So when my dad talked about who took care of him when he was a little boy in the neighborhood, it wasn't the police, it wasn't social services, it wasn't the church, it was the gangsters.
His father would actually tie him to a tree and hit him. So his father was very abusive.
Sam's old man had a plan for him. It was to beat the living crap out of him every day. His old man would chain him to a dead oak tree in the yard and just flay him raw, and leave him there, chained to the tree all night. Sam took it out on the streets of Chicago.
I think a lot of it came from his being young and impoverished, poor, that he was driven to make a better life.
Then Antonino married again and had 5 more kids. Sam's dad's second wife was killed saving Sam's brother Chucky from being hit by a car. By that time, Sam was already into small neighborhood crime and boy detention centers.
Like everybody else, he was a thief. And then, progressed into getting involved in gambling.
And out there on the streets and in the gin mills, in the back rooms and the counting houses, just waiting for Sam to distinguish himself from the herd of everyday hoods, was the outfit.
The Chicago family is called the outfit. New York families are called the mafia. I can't explain why the difference, but those were the nomenclatures that they use.
He fell into the 42 gang, a tough bunch of young freelance enforcers.
42 gang was involved in 2 bank robberies that I'm aware of. They turned out to be a pretty bad bunch of people. They actually killed 4 Chicago policemen in their 9-year reign of terror. Even though there were some very young kids, they were very violent, very aggressive criminal gang.
They were extremely vicious gang, and when they were on the street, they were victimizing people in the neighborhood.
Sam's many arrests kept his dad broke. At 18, Sam was indicted for murder. He got off from lack of evidence, but he was becoming downright disrespectable. Sam liked to drag race on the city streets. He hired out as a top-notch wheelman for robberies and getaways. His wild eyes behind the wheel and the trigger got him known as Mooney, meaning out of his frickin' mind nuts.
As far as I know from guys that worked for him, bosses, capos in Chicago, said he was a little out there, so to speak, crazy. He was, a couple french fries short of a Happy Meal.
Sam Giancana did not kill for the pleasure of killing people. It was purposeful killing. And that's the way killing was usually done in the outfit.
He was a Capone guy, so that means he was doing hits at a very young age. Maybe the way he carried them out was a little bit out there rather than just taking care of it business-like.
It was a growth time for street hoods, Prohibition, and Chicago was still a one-boss town. The one boss was Al Capone. Sam met Capone at the Four Deuces in 1925. Capone gave Sam a job: get rid of Johnny Torrio, who thought he was Al's boss. Sam was the lead shooter when Torrio was almost killed outside his house. Torrio pulled out of Chicago because Sam showed him it was a one-boss town. Then Capone sicced Sam on the rest of the competition, guys like Diamond Joe Esposito. Within those circles, Sam was like a killer's killer. Guys like Frank Nitti and Jack McGurn, guys they made movies about, all called on young Sam to settle their books.
The St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929, when 7 members of a rival Irish gang headed by Bugs Moran were killed in a garage up in the Lincoln Park area of Chicago.
The next year, Machine Gun Jack McGurn asked Sam to be wheelman for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. But Sam wasn't the kind of wheelman who waits in the car. He dressed up like a cop with the others and helped mow down the Bugs Moran gang. McGurn later told Capone that Sam was a gold mine, a wheelman who could shoot. So now Sam was using his wheelman skills as the personal driver for outfit boss Paul Ricca. It was a whole lot safer than driving for jobs, more steady. He needed to move up in order to support a growing family. As a cover, Sam worked with his brother-in-law in a small envelope factory, but it wasn't the kind of action he wanted to be close to. So he found some new action, looked hopeful. Prohibition was over, but the wholesalers still liked to get the cheap, tax-free stuff, so you could make more money. Sam teamed up with another patch hotshot, Guido Gentili, to supply the bootleg. Felt like a lucky plan, but it wasn't. The IRS raided the farm and busted the whole crew, Sam included. This was federal. No way could Sam's dad afford the $5,000 bail. Sam got 4 years, first in Leavenworth, then Terre Haute. Doing a stretch for tax evasion on Sam's cell block was a talkative black convict named Eddie Jones. Eddie and his brothers were the policy kings of Chicago. The policy racket took in $180,000 a week in the black neighborhoods.
What was appealing about the policy rackets? Anybody could buy a lottery ticket. You could be the poorest man or woman in Chicago. You could pay a nickel, and you buy a number. And it was everybody's dream. I'm going to win today. It gave poor people a daily sense of hopefulness. That's why it was so popular.
The Joneses controlled the policy racket, and Sam learned all about it from Eddie. Eddie and his brothers had made a fortune and owned great estates in France and Mexico. Sam and Eddie teamed up. Sam used his pull to get Eddie better treatment, and Eddie taught Sam how his family business worked and how to memorize number combinations. When Sam got out in 1943, Chicago was still a one-boss town. Only now the boss was a guy named Anthony Accardo, a guy Sam knew very well. Like Sam, Accardo was a Capone wheel and trigger man. When Eddie Jones got out of the joint, Sam was right there waiting for him. Pals in the joint, pals outside, right? Jones went for it and staked Sam to $100,000 to run one of the Jones family rackets, jukeboxes. Sam did well with the jukeboxes, for both himself and the Jones family. That's the way Sam made his first fortune. By 1945, Sam was able to move his family out of the patch and into a large house in suburban Oak Park. You'd think having some money for the first time in his life, he'd be satisfied. No. Sam wanted a seat at the table. He knew the boss of Chicago, came up the same way. But the guys around the boss all thought of him as moony, too crazy and unstable to run anything. He had to change that.
And that was the door that was open to Sam Giancana, which Eddie Jones, I'm sure, didn't anticipate this, but Sam Giancana then, with the door partly open, levered it open by saying to the guys in the outfit, hey, maybe the outfit can come in on this.
He worked overtime to get an audience with Accardo and his inner circle. He offered to bring the profitable black policy wheel under outfit control. All of it. That got their attention. All he had to do was sell out the best friend he ever had. The guy that made it all possible for Sam to move his family to Oak Park. Eddie Jones.
He kidnapped Eddie Jones and brought him to basement of a home, unknown location, and said, Eddie, you want to live? Here's what you have to do. Take this $250,000, take a train, go to Mexico. See you later. And Eddie Jones was a rational and reasonable person, and that's exactly what he did.
Sam took over the entire policy wheel, making him and the outfit rich.
All indications are that he rose in stature because of his ability to take over the policy wheels in Chicago.
As Sam rose in importance to the outfit, he surrounded himself with his old pals from the 42 gang, Butch Blasey and Chucky English. Butch and Chucky. These two guys would center their lives around Sam.
You've got almost certainly, I think, Butch Blasey, who becomes Sam's driver, bodyguard, confidant.
Our godfather was Dominic Butch Blasey, who was Sam Giancana's bodyguard.
I just remember kind of Butch. I mean, he was like, it seemed like he was his brother. You know, that's how much he trusted him.
Chucky English was a handsome, charming guy with the ladies everywhere, one of Sam's most intimate friends. He ran the very lucrative jukebox concession.
Chucky English reaches his apex sort of under Sam Giancana.
Sam threw himself into his work and started to spread out in ways no man from the patch had ever spread out before. For starters, he became crime boss of Chicago.
Sam Giancana appears to come in as the operating boss of the outfit in '57. Tony Accardo voluntarily steps out of that role.
Well, Tony was the head of the Chicago family, reputed head of the Chicago family for a number of years. He got his start back in Prohibition, working for Al Capone, never convicted of crime.
Tony Accardo, in some respects, was the antithesis of Sam Giancana. Tony Accardo didn't want to be in the limelight ever. Tony Accardo wanted to keep his picture out of the newspaper. Tony Accardo wanted a low profile. Tony Accardo sold his mansion in River Forest because he was getting too much attention because it was palatial, and moved to a small apartment with his wife. Tony Accardo didn't want his face out there, didn't want himself being up front. 1957, thereabouts, Tony Accardo decided to step back, let somebody else take over. Around that time, there was a little more law enforcement heat being generated on the outfit. There was no denying that there was organized crime in America after the Apalachin meeting took place. J. Edgar Hoover couldn't say there's no such thing as organized crime.
What a lot of people fail to realize is that the FBI really didn't get involved in the investigation of organized crime or the mafia until the mid to late 1950s.
On November 4th, 1957, at the home of Joe the Barber Barbera in Apalachin, New York, was the historic summit of mob leadership, attended by over 100 mobsters from all over the United States, Canada, and Italy. Sam was there, representing the Chicago outfit. Local and state law enforcement agencies, who noticed all the out-of-state plates on all the fancy cars, raided the meeting and detained and indicted over 60 crime bosses. The others, Sam included, literally headed for the hills to avoid sane. The main outcome was that FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover could no longer ignore the existence of organized crime in America. He was forced to put some guys on it. The FBI, with virtually no experience dealing with organized crime, put the full court press on Sam, utilizing 9 cars to follow his every move. They were going up against the best wheelman in Chicago. He led these suits on a chase like something out of an action movie, losing them, causing them to have collisions, and even sneaking up behind one agent who was totally lost and taunting, "Here I am." But they found better ways to follow his activities and actually tried to gaslight him.
I think they knew that, well, or they estimated, we can rattle this guy, we can get to this guy.
FBI agent Bill Romer came to know more about Sam Giancana than he'd ever wanted.
Bill had attended Notre Dame University, was a boxer, had a very imposing physical presence.
Sam is not the most stable character as opposed to Paul Rico, Tony Accardo. They had a very particular strategy then, so how do we get to this guy?
The tales paid off for the feds. Before long, they knew all the places where Sam talked business. Romer planted the bugs himself, fully aware that he could tell no one, carry no badge, and say nothing about the FBI if he got caught. He managed to plant live mics in most of the places where Sam held secret meetings with Accardo, Butch, Chucky, and many other intimates. They had Sam wired for sound, and over the years, they found out a lot of amazing things that they could never prosecute because these wiretaps were not legal.
He had a camera and he started taking pictures of these gentlemen following him. So it was kind of an interest. It was kind of a fun thing to watch.
He sued the FBI in court. Can you imagine how much that pissed Accardo off? To bring that kind of public attention to the outfit? Are you kidding me? To make matters worse, Sam got up and testified in open court. Sam used his own secret photos and films to prove that the technique of lockstep surveillance involving an intrusive 24-hour presence in the subject's life was more harassment than investigation. This was the kind of public crap against legal authority that Ricardo and others really hated.
Sam won that case.
As soon as Sam took over outfit operations, he started thinking beyond Chicago.
Sam was looking to extend the outfit's operations beyond the city, and he did.
The outfit became a force to be reckoned with in Las Vegas.
Seems like the outfit gets into Las Vegas in a very, very big way, and they ultimately become, of the Cosa Nostra crime families, the biggest player in Las Vegas.
In 1955, Ricardo and the outfit financed the Riviera to the tune of $10 million, using a group of Miami investors as fronts. Then they got the Stardust through the efforts of Sam's man, Johnny Rosselli. The Stardust paid off at $400,000 a month to the outfit. Then the Tropicana, the most luxurious casino on the Strip, fell under outfit control when Ricardo got his hands on the Teamsters Pension Fund. Sam, Ricardo, and Rosselli brokered a deal with the Desert Inn's Mo Dalitz and the New York families to run the Desert Inn, the Stardust, and the Riviera, all three major casinos on the Strip. Over the next decade, the outfit added the Hacienda, the Sahara, and the biggest downtown casino, the Fremont, to its Vegas holdings. The Vegas skim brought millions of dollars in for the outfit every month. In Havana, Cuba, the outfit had a sweetheart deal with the local government to run casinos at a great profit. Cuba's U.S.-backed military leader, Fulgencio Batista, appointed New York Commission mastermind Meyer Lansky as the advisor on gambling reform. In 1952, Lansky offered the previous Cuban president a bribe of $250,000 to step down so that Batista could take office. In return, Batista offered Lansky a government match for any investment over $1 million in a casino. But there was trouble on the horizon, and a man named Fidel Castro. Born on a Cuban sugar plantation, gifted in academics and sports, Castro was both a lawyer and a pitcher good enough to be scouted for American baseball teams. But it was in the field of politics that he really made his mark. In 1959, just when Meyer Lansky was celebrating the $3 million he'd made during his first operational year of his casino, the Nacional, Castro led a workers' revolt that became a revolution, ousting Batista, forming a communist government, and nationalizing the casinos. This was bad for the outfit. One minute they were running the place, and the next thing Sam knew, Santo Trafficante was in a Cuban jail. He called up an old acquaintance from the patch to go down there, get Trafficante out of jail, a guy named Jack Ruby.
Jacob Rubenstein grew up a block away from me. He lived on the same block, actually. Jack Ruby was low-level outfit associate, worked with Jewish members of the outfit, controlled gambling on the west side.
By this time, Ruby ran a strip club in Miami and often went to Havana on Sam's behalf to handle Cuban relations. Ruby got Trafficante out of jail and back to the U.S. Sam would remember Ruby for that, giving him a piece of one casino and keeping him in mind for future operations. Sam enjoyed hanging out with some pretty famous people. He and old pal Frank Sinatra had some great times together. Sinatra introduced him to starlets. There was another guy Frank did the same thing for, a guy about to run for president, Jack Kennedy. In fact, Sinatra introduced both pals, Kennedy and Giancana, to an ex-girlfriend named Judith Campbell Exner. Soon, both Sam and Kennedy were sleeping with her. In 1988, Judith Campbell Exner claimed that she had been a courier between Kennedy and Giancana, and even gone so far as to arrange several meetings between them. Was it true? Did Sam and Kennedy know that they were both sharing a woman? Maybe not. But Sam knew Kennedy's dad.
Joe Kennedy, much older than Sam, supposedly members of organized crime saved Joe Kennedy from assassination a couple of times. Joe Kennedy was a bootlegger. There's no mistake about that. He was in the alcohol business when it was illegal and when it was legal. So there's no question that he was involved. during and after Prohibition, and that he had contact with members of organized crime.
While outfit guys like Sam were always on the outs with society, Joe Kennedy had managed a transition for him and his family from bootlegger to Brahmin. In 1959, Joe Kennedy wanted major help from Sam in getting his son elected president. He knew Sam might not be so approachable, mostly because Joe's other son, Bobby, was giving him holy hell, humiliating him on the McClellan Committee hearings.
And would you tell us about the vice operations down in Lake County, Indiana?
Declined to answer because I honestly believe my answer might have been incriminating.
Would you tell us whether if you have opposition from anybody that you dispose of them by having them stuffed in the trunk? Is that what you do, Mr. Giancana?
Joe asked Frank to reach out to Sam Giancana to get Sam to use his resources and influence over unions and polling districts to get Jack Kennedy elected president. Some people say Sinatra arranged for Sam and Old Man Kennedy to meet face to face.
At the height of the outfit's political power, they controlled a block of wards in the city called the West Side Block. The West Side Block was part of the Democratic machine.
And what would be in it for Sam? Well, for one thing, Bobby would lay off. The new president would focus on the Soviet Union and lay off organized crime. And Sam could operate freely knowing that he owned the White House. Something about that sounded good to Sam.
It's nice to have a president in your back pocket.
On Election Day, 70 million votes were cast across the country. Jack Kennedy won the popular election by 113,554 of those votes. He won Chicago's Cook County by a margin 4 times larger. In Illinois, Michigan, Missouri, and Nevada, Kennedy had very close victories. These were all states where Momo's outfit had union control, and they yielded the 63 electoral votes that kept Richard Nixon from being elected.
Supposedly, the vote in Chicago brought him over the threshold. He won by one of the smallest pluralities in presidential history.
The Nixon-Kennedy election took place on November 8, 1960. My family was living in Los Angeles, where my dad, Lieutenant Colonel William L. Still, was the deputy director of the Minuteman Missile Program at what is today known as the Los Angeles Air Force Base. It was my family tradition to stay up until the presidential election was decided on election night, which sometimes meant until 3 a.m. So immersion in national politics came with the additional treat of being the only night we could stay up that late. The last precincts decided in 1960 were the Democratic strongholds in the city of Chicago. This was a brand new Election Day dirty trick, which was repeated again to some extent in election 2020, the one Trump supposedly lost. Chicago Democrats waited until they knew how many votes they would need out of Chicago and then provide them to secure a Kennedy victory. Even then, my mom and dad knew why the vote was held up. There really wasn't any other reasonable conclusion. Even the network TV commentators speculated about it. But this was the first election where television channels were able to provide coverage of the presidential debates and later on the election returns. This was the world into which my political philosophy was born. Kennedy narrowly won the popular vote with 49.7%, 34 million plus votes, to Nixon's 49.5%, 34 million votes, securing 303 electoral votes to Nixon's 219.
Phyllis McGuire sang with a popular trio called the McGuire Sisters. She was tall, ravishing, and $100,000 deep in gambling debts. Sam smooth-talked her, but it wasn't so much what he said that impressed her as what he did. He took care of her debt, not by paying it, but by telling the Cleveland hood who owned the casino to eat it. It was the beginning of a close, devoted relationship that would pretty much go on the rest of Sam's life.
He was crazy about her. Make no bones about that. He loved that woman.
The McGuire sisters were playing gigs all over the world, and Sam would take off with them. In London, a photographer got a shot of Sam partying with the sisters that made the papers all over the world. Accardo and some of the other outfit players didn't like it. See more and more, Sam was leaving Butch in charge of the Chicago Rackets while he chased Phyllis across the ocean. In late 1961, Sam and Phyllis had a public encounter with Agent Romer and his team of FBI men at Chicago's O'Hare Airport.
There was a confrontation at the airport between Bill Romer and some of the other agents.
The agents took Phyllis aside and gave her a choice between going into a private room at the airport or going downtown and answering some questions in front of a grand jury. She said she'd cooperate. Sam saw her going into the room with the agents and just went ballistic.
He started calling me all kinds of names in the American Airlines concourse at O'Hare in Chicago. And I just was not used to that kind of abuse. And so I finally called everybody around. I said, come around and see this piece of scum. This is Sam Giancana. He's the boss of the Chicago mob. You people are so lucky you can pass through Chicago. We have to live with this piece of slime. Just look at this jerk. He never had been talked to, just like I had never been talked to. He had never been the successor to Al Capone, and he bumped up against me and he said, Romer, he said, you lit a fire tonight that's never going to go out. We'll get you if it's the last thing we ever do.
It was this occasion, more than any other, that really rankled low-profile Tony Accardo and set him against Sam in ways that would become more and more of a problem. Robert Mayhew was a private investigator and ex-FBI agent with a history of contracting out to handle delicate matters for the CIA. He was approached by Colonel Sheffield Edwards, director of CIA's Office of Security, and Deputy Director of Plans Richard M. Bissell, Jr., to arrange with Sam Giancana a contract hit on Fidel Castro.
It made sense to the CIA, to Mayhew and his contemporaries, to enlist members of organized crime to do their dirty work. And this is incontrovertible because we have declassified documents that recorded conversations with Sam Giancana and the CIA. We have Robert Mayhew, who's an utterly credible witness to the event. This isn't fanciful.
Mayhew placed a call to Johnny Rosselli. Rosselli used to run the outfit's Hollywood action, but now he was running Vegas, although the FBI files listed him as a producer at Monogram Studios. Rosselli was more than a little freaked out by the request. Mayhew played on Johnny's patriotism, telling him how Castro was another Hitler. Turns out, Johnny had a lot of patriotism, and he took the $150,000 offer to Sam. Sam Giancana, with one eye on the millions that weren't coming in from Cuba and one eye on the political power inherent in a clandestine relationship with the CIA, said, yeah, Johnny, let's do it for nothing. Giancana, Mayhew, and Santo Trafficante holed up at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami Beach, planned the operation. Being a rival agency, the CIA didn't know it, but this meeting was taped by the FBI.
We have documentation that Mayhew met with Sam Giancana and that they hatched several plots to assassinate Castro.
In early 1962, Romer's wiretaps of the Armory Lounge conversations gave the FBI intelligence that President Kennedy and Sam Giancana were both shacking up with Judith Campbell Exner. J. Edgar Hoover brought the matter to Bobby Kennedy's attention, and Bobby Kennedy took the matter very, very seriously. White House logs show that one more call was placed to Campbell Exner, after which there was no further contact. This is when Bobby got John to shut the Iron Gate against Sinatra and the whole bunch. Sinatra had built a home for John Kennedy in Palm Springs, a presidential getaway. Kennedy never saw it. The next time he came west, John Kennedy snubbed Sinatra and stayed at the home of singer Bing Crosby. Sinatra took it hard, but there was more hell to pay than that. Bobby Kennedy, as Attorney General, kept coming after Sam. Sam knew that he'd been screwed by the Kennedys. What was worse, Accardo knew. There was another woman John Kennedy, Frank Sinatra, and Sam Giancana all slept with. One much more famous than Judith Campbell Exner. Sam had known Marilyn Monroe before she was famous. He'd met her through Johnny Rosselli. He'd even invested in her career.
I think that there's another highly sensational story there, that the President of the United States and the boss of a major crime family are sleeping with America's #1 starlet.
Sam had found out from his old CIA contact, Mayhew, that the CIA had recorded lovemaking between Jack Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe. He'd known about the affair from Sinatra, but now he learned from Mayhew that Jack had pulled out, and now his brother Bobby was having an extramarital affair with Marilyn, an affair he was trying to end because she was becoming unstable. Sam invited Monroe to the Cal Neva, the Tahoe Lodge he owned with Sinatra, where Sam had his own affair with her. According to FBI wiretap conversations between Sam and Johnny Rosselli at the Armory Lounge. Maybe that was Sam's revenge against the Kennedys. But according to Sam's brother Pepe, there was more. Pepe claims that Sam told him that Marilyn told Sam that she had letters from Bobby Kennedy. Sam's plan, according to his brother's report, was to murder Monroe, make it look like suicide, then have the police find the letters from Bobby Kennedy. The Kennedys would be disgraced and removed from office. Pepe Giancana swears that Sam got a couple of out-of-town guys to break into her place and feed her a Nembutal suppository, which killed her quickly and left no evidence. Then they scattered Bobby Kennedy's love letters all over the place. Sam opened the papers expecting to see Bobby Kennedy blamed for the suicide, but Bobby's name wasn't mentioned. The Secret Service had gotten there first and swept the incriminating letters from the death scene. Not everybody believes this story. According to Pepe Giancana, Sam told his brother of his own complicity in the events of November 22, 1963, in his Oak Park basement. According to this account, Lee Harvey Oswald was recruited by Carlos Marcello as a patsy. One of Oswald's uncles was Marcello's lieutenant, but more importantly, Oswald had deep ties to Cuba, and Castro would be blamed. The actual shooters were supplied by Giancana, Richard Kane, Chucky Nicoletti, and Milwaukee Phil Aldericio.
Oswald, I don't think, could figure out how to grab a gumball machine, let alone to be positioned into this. It had to come from people that, knowing how to kill is like tying their shoes.
It was Richard Kane, according to Sam's brother, who fired the shot that killed John Kennedy. Interesting guy, this Richard Kane. He was a Chicago cop on Sam's payroll, both an FBI informant and a made member of the outfit. He had also worked with the CIA, Sam, Rosselli, and Ruby on the whole Cuban fiasco. FBI agent Romer always claimed that no way could Sam have been involved in the Kennedy assassination because the FBI surveillance would have picked it up. But the guy he had watching Sam was FBI informant Richard Kane. And in 1963, Romer and the FBI had no idea that Kane was actually working for Sam. So there were things that the feds didn't know. To make certain that Oswald would never talk, Sam got his old helper Jack Ruby to get 2 Dallas policemen, J.D. Tippett and Roscoe White, who were secretly on his payroll, to shoot Oswald. Everything was arranged.
In '63, I know when it all happened, and I remember he was home that day. It was on the TV, and I'm sitting there, and he just didn't seem, shocked.
Was Sam Giancana happy that Kennedy was assassinated? Yes.
But Sam didn't stay happy. The plan went wrong. Oswald shot and killed Officer Tippett and got arrested. Then he started to talk.
Press dispatches you people have been given, but I emphatically deny these charges. I'm just a pattern. Press dispatches you people have been given, but I emphatically deny these charges. I'm just a patsy.
Sam put the arm on Jack Ruby.
The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
I heard this from fellows that would know that he had like 6 months to live with cancer or something. It makes sense that he would do that pick one for the team there.
I'm playing with my cars on the carpet, watching TV. and there comes Jack Ruby shooting Oswald. My dad screams, "That's Jacob." For Christ's sake, there's Jacob. That was Jack Ruby. Think about how incredible that story is.
If Pepe Giancana's story is true, then Sam had only half of a success. The intrusion of Jack Ruby into this bit of American history would always raise questions about the outfit's involvement in the Kennedy assassination, which would also piss off Sam's boss, Accardo, who would once again see the outfit make the papers.
When enough is enough, it's enough. And that's not my words, that's just somebody that was very close to that situation and said.
Sam was a jet setter. Sam was in the newspaper. Sam had his face on the camera all the time. That just brought more opportunities for the media to cover Sam.
Tony Accardo didn't like it.
Accardo developed just this incredible hatred for Sam Giancana. And again, that seems to have been driven by Sam fooling around with women, which led him to not mind the story. By essentially 1966, they pulled him from that job. They told him, "Sam, you're out."
Well, I know that another crew was on it. They were on it first. They got called off at the last minute, and there was an easier way to do it, and it was Butch Blassie.
Chucky English and Butch Blassie were down in the basement. That would be my guess.
My thing is that I don't think Butch was as close to Sam as people thought, or as at least as Sam thought, anyway.
As you know, he was killed in the kitchen of his home in June of 1975, another of the many unsolved gangland slayings we have here in Chicago. There was no sign of forced entrance. He obviously knew the person that was sent to kill him.
Allegedly, the murder weapon was found in Thatcher Woods on the way to River Forest, where Butch lived and where Chucky lived.
I think that Tony Accardo would have been involved in the decision to have Sam Giancana killed. I don't think there's any question about that. Somebody of Sam's stature, it would have to be approved from the top.
JB's best guy was Jackie Cerrone. He wanted him to be underboss. Sam rejected him. Flat out says, "I don't want him as a..." In fact, his quote was "over my dead body," which Jack later in years had said, well, he finally got his wish.
While Sam was running the outfit, he brought in millions every month. Whatever money Sam Giancana had when he died was never found.
The strong belief is that it was squirreled away somewhere, and what he maybe thought of as the great love of his later life after his wife died, Phyllis McGuire, that she had control over those accounts and she got the money. That's the common belief.
During his lifetime, you could read in the papers that he was a ruthless crime boss. But now these transcripts reveal to anyone who's interested a man who was the intersection of illegal gambling, murder, CIA plots, presidential black ops, spies, and the most sexually haunting women the world has ever known. A man who grew up poor in the Patch, who killed guys, who loved his family, was adored by his daughters, betrayed by his friends. Who hung out with the famous and the invisible, who was both courted and prosecuted by Kennedys, and was finally exposed by these tapes as a very complicated guy, the tip of a very strange iceberg.